What is an exponent? An exponent tells us how many of a number to multiply together. How do we represent an exponent? Well, it is represented as what we call a superscript number. So first off, we'll have what we call the base, and the base can be some number or some variable. And then the exponent is going to be a number that we write in smaller print at the top. So if, for example, I were to write a little 3 over here, that is what we call an exponent. And what that exponent tells us is how many of the base to multiply together. So in this case, this exponent is saying multiply 3 5s together. So what we mean by that is 5 times 5 times 5. Or if, for example, you were to have something like 2 to the power of 7, then that would mean multiply 7 2s together. So 2 times 2 times 2, and so on. And so you have 7 2s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 2s being multiplied together. So that's what the definition of an exponent is. It tells you how many of a particular number to multiply together. And so the first kind of peculiar case that we encounter is the exponent 1, right? What does an exponent of 1 mean? So if, for example, I had something like 3 to the power of 1, well, that just means my product consists of one number, and that is just one repetition of that base 3. So any number to the power of 1, is just that number itself. And that's going to be a useful thing to remember when we start looking at more complex expressions and simplifying them. And just remember that equality works both ways. So any number to the power of 1 is equal to that number itself, but also any number can be represented as that number to the power of 1. And it's going to be useful to remember that relationship. It's also very key to remember that 2 to the power of 3 is very different to 2 times 3. So 2 to the power of 3 represents a repeated multiplication, right? We're saying take 3 2s and multiply them together. So that would be 2 times 2, which is 4, times another 2, which gives me 8. Whereas 2 times 3 represents a repeated addition. So 2 times 3 means add 3 2s together, or it means add 2 3s together. Either way, that gives you 6. So very important to remember that these are very different concepts. Do not confuse them. Finally, it's just important to remember some important terminology around exponents that we're going to be using frequently in future lessons. So let's say we have a number like this, 5 to the power of 11. So important that you read this as 5 to the power of 11, or some people might say 5 raised to the power of 11, and there might be other variations, but generally in these video lessons we will read this as 5 to the power of 11, and this number over here is what we call the base. This number here we've already introduced as the exponent, and this whole number, so 5 to the power of 11, is called a power. And that is that can be quite confusing because some people refer to the exponent as a power, and then life just gets confusing. But in these videos, at the very least, this number is called the base, this one's called the exponent, and this whole number is called a power.